Meet Ben Campbell, a 21-year-old student whose journey is inspired by a true story. Ben aspires to graduate from Harvard Medical but lands up in the world of Vegas, where he faces some serious obstacles. Even with all odds against him, he does everything he can to achieve his goal. But does he succeed in fulfilling his dream? Let's find out. The story begins when Ben is interviewed by a member of the scholarship committee at Harvard. Ben has a 4.0 GPA with an MCAT score of 44 on 45. He has received glowing recommendations from his professors at MIT, where he is currently graduating. Even though Ben has shown a bright skill set, the interviewer tells him that the other 76 applicants have just as glowing resumes. He tells Ben that he needs to have a drastic life experience that would make him dazzle. He also tells Ben that his chances of getting a scholarship only depend on his essay, highlighting how his life experience separates him from the rest of the candidates. Ben has nothing to say and is left disheartened. After the interview, Ben goes to the shop where he works and returns the coat he borrowed. He talks to his best friend, Miles, about how the only thing stopping him from getting into Harvard Medical is money. He tells Miles that the tuition fees and living expenses alone are $300,000, and there is no way he can afford to pay that, given his financial condition. Later that night, Ben is celebrating his 21st birthday with his mom and his friends, Miles and Cam. Miles talks about a major breakthrough that he made on the robotics project that they had been working on to win a prestigious science competition. He talks about how they don't really travel, have any love life, or even any money, but this science competition is the only thing in their life that could work out for them. Later on, Ben and Miles attend a nonlinear equation class with Professor O'Reilly. Ben, just like any other student, is blended in the class just when the professor throws a question at his students. Ben makes an outrageous, but correct statement about Newton, which catches Professor O'Reilly's attention. To test Ben, the professor throws another question about statistical probability, with an example of a three-door situation. Ben, keeping emotions aside, answers practically, leaving the professor astounded. The professor looks over to another student who can be seen smirking. He then looks over at Ben's test paper and seems quite impressed. We see Ben as usual, going through his study material at night, in an empty library. The student that was seen smirking in the nonlinear class, named Fisher, enters the library and instructs Ben to follow him. They both enter a classroom where we see a group of students seated at a makeshift blackjack table, with Professor O'Reilly, better known as Mickey, in this group, standing next to a board. Everyone in the group introduces themselves. Ben meets Kiana, Fisher, Choi, and lastly, Jill, who he secretly likes. Mickey tries to get Ben to join the group, in order to use his math skills for playing blackjack. He tells Ben that blackjack is a highly beatable game of numbers, and that the group goes to Las Vegas each weekend and on holidays, to win insane amounts of money. Mickey, knowing Ben is practical, deliberately uses facts and practicality to convince him. But Ben, thinking about his friends, job, and career, lets everyone down. Jill tries to persuade him as well, but the scene ends up with a frustrated Mickey closing the door on Ben. The next day, we see Ben at his place of work, calculating complicated discount numbers in front of his customers, when Jill enters the shop. She is impressed with how Ben can just run a calculator inside his brain. She asks him about ties and makes him think she is interested in him. Ben starts to have strong emotions about Jill. But to his disappointment, she is here for his brain instead of his heart. After Jill gets rejected by Ben, she tells him to think about the offer. Later that night, Mickey is testing his students, but everyone fails miserably, even Jill, who has been practicing blackjack her entire childhood. Ben, who enters the room silently, calls out the correct answer, leaving everyone with a warm smile. The scene turns into a montage where Ben is practicing counting cards, and remembering the signs for each card. He begins to read books on blackjack during ongoing lectures. The group has devised a unique language, where words are coded as numbers. Ben, walking with Mickey, lets him know he will leave this game behind when he wins $300,000, or something even close to that number. Mickey says he understands and will not stand in his way out. Ben asks what will happen if they get caught, but Mickey assures him that counting cards is not illegal and that it's just math. The scene abruptly cuts to a person getting beaten by Cole Williams, a brutal casino security enforcer. He doesn't like people who count cards and steal from the casino. Later on, we see the group at a diner where they're explaining the game plan to Ben. They tell him how Kiana, Choi, and Jill are the designated spotters, who sit at various blackjack tables and only bet the table minimum while keeping count of the cards. When the deck at one of the tables turns hot, the spotters signal the so-called big players, which would be Fisher and another member of the team, who recently left the group for a job at Google. The big players pretend to be some ignorant or drunk rich kid that places big bets and continues to keep the count, and finally, when the deck is about to cool, they cash in and leave the table to go to another one. The group tests Ben on their hand signals before Ben goes for a trial game the next day. They ask him the signals for when the deck is hot, when the deck is cooling, when they need to talk, and when to immediately get out of the casino. Soon, we see Ben practicing his skills in a low-key underground casino. After seeing the hand signal from Choi, Ben decides to sit at the table. Choi uses the coded word, magazine, while talking to the dealer, which gives Ben the indication that the current count is 17, and he begins counting forward. He starts winning right from his first hand while the dealer says, "Winner, winner, chicken dinner." Hours pass by as he earns more and more until his heart stops when strangers pull him out of the game with a bag on his head. They ask him what the current count is. Ben, even under pressure, recalibrates and calls out the correct number. Upon removing the bag from his head, he sees Mickey and the others standing and smiling at him. They were just seeing if he can count cards under pressure. Mickey officially welcomes him to the team. Mickey tells Ben he is finally ready to join the team tomorrow for their trip to Las Vegas. He tells him no matter what happens, he must always stick to the rules and keep his emotions out of the table, because there is a difference between counting cards and gambling. And how, when you let your emotions throw the cards, you either get caught or lose your fortune. The next morning, we see the group at the airport where Fisher forces Ben to stash some cash in his underwear. Ben nervously goes through the security check but without arousing suspicion. Even on the flight, he is practicing with cards and takes a look outside the window to see the gorgeous city of Las Vegas. The group enters a room where Mickey gives them fake identities. Ben asks why they need fake IDs if this is legal. Mickey tells him that this can be useful to stay under the radar and go to different casinos. He also tells Ben that they use various disguises for the same purpose. Mickey instructs Ben to order a tonic water and lime and pretend to be a little drunk, in order to fool the cameras in the ceiling, or as Mickey calls them, the eyes in the sky, and most importantly tells Ben to pretend to be strangers with the other members of the group. Ben asks Mickey, why does he not play, and Mickey says that he quit the game a long time ago, while he was on top, as should Ben and the rest. The group separates and sits at different tables. Ben sees everyone in their disguise pretending to be someone else when he gets a signal from one of them and sits at a table. After getting the coded signal for the current count from Kiana, he starts counting forward. As time passes by, Ben goes to different tables and wins at every hand he plays. His stack of chips keeps getting bigger and Mickey can't be more proud of Ben. His math helps him to win all through the night. While Fisher, sitting at the bar, is looking at him with envy. After playing all night, Ben retires for the day with a huge sum and leaves the casino in the morning. Later that day, Jill wakes up Ben to give him his share of the winnings from last night and congratulate him on his first big day. She compliments him on how he played by the rules and got out at the right time. She even mentioned that he made more money than Fisher. After some talking, Ben tells her he is just in this until he earns $300,000 so he can pay for his college. Jill knows this will be hard for him to leave behind, but still, she is happy Ben has an end goal. They are called by Mickey, who is happy with Ben and Jill, but doesn't appreciate Fisher getting overconfident and not listening to the signals he was given by the group. Cole, who was earlier beating a man for counting cards, is seen talking to his associate, who tells him that he lost another ongoing contract for providing security to a casino, because they upgraded to facial recognition software. In Boston, we see Ben eating breakfast with his mom. Ben's mom slides a piece of paper to Ben which turns out to be a check for $68,000. She smiles at him and says she has been saving for years for his education. She knows this is not enough to cover his college expenses but will at least give him a head start. But Ben decides to lie to his mom about getting the scholarship so she can keep the hard-earned money she had been saving. Later in his dorm room, he sums up his earnings to a total of $16,000, which he stashes in his ceiling before his friends pop in and ask him where he was during the weekend. But being the genius he is, he instantly comes up with a believable excuse. They then ask him to go to a bar with them. While drinking at the bar, Ben sees Jill with some guys and decides to buy her some beers. They start talking and end up in the subway sharing their life stories. Ben, getting the wrong idea, leans over to kiss Jill, but she politely rejects him and leaves at the next stop, telling him it's nothing personal. Ben is completely embarrassed as she walks out. Weeks pass by as Ben keeps winning more and more money. He manages to win close to $200,000, which is already 2/3 of his goal. His two lives get so mixed up that Ben starts to forget when he is at home, and when he is in Vegas. The lines between his two identities start to blur, and finally, this success is not a secret anymore. Cole, the security in charge at one of the casinos, spots Ben. It turns out that Cole can count cards too, and thinks Ben is doing the same. While at MIT, Ben and Mickey are talking to each other, when Ben sees Fisher and greets him, but he completely ignores Ben. Mickey tells Ben not to pay attention to Fisher, as he is clearly jealous of him. Shortly after, Ben's friends confront him, but he leaves them with little to no explanation of why he's been so different lately. Later on, we see how Ben becomes unhinged and loses his sense of self. He gets distracted by the luxuries he had never been able to experience and indulges himself with the best that Vegas has to offer. He starts to believe that his new life is a far better version of his life back in Boston and forgets his end goal, which was to make enough money to cover his expenses for Harvard Medical. On their next trip, Ben and Jill share an intimate moment, followed by a passionate kiss. During their game, Fisher, in his drunken state, ignores the signals and sits at the table with Ben, calling him the Rain Man, and making the others visibly uncomfortable. Cole and the other authorities have a good eye on Ben and even crack the group's signals. Just when security is going to bust Ben, Fisher accidentally creates a scene starting chaos, in the midst of which Ben and the others run away, barely escaping Cole without even realizing it. Mickey, who is furious at Fisher, tells him he is off the team. Fisher tries to explain his drunken state, but Mickey is not going to tolerate such unprofessional behavior. Fisher goes out, leaving the team with chips that need to be checked in for money in under 24 hours because of the chaos he created. Ben comes up with a plan to use the strippers to check out their chips for money, which would pass off as tips, and they won't even be monitored. Mickey can't be more impressed with his genius when this plan works out. Later that night, Ben and Jill make love in her suite. The next day, Ben goes back to his dorm room and stashes his winnings in his ceiling. By now, he has collected a very large sum of money. Later on, Ben is supposed to bring a crucial component that is required for his robotics project. He is not just late to meet his friends, but also gets the wrong component. His friends are more than disappointed because this mistake would set them back for weeks. They tell him that they are going to the competition without him because his heart is not in this anymore. Ben leaves them after disrespecting their passion and love for the project. Ben takes his rage with him to Las Vegas and ends up losing $200,000 in one night. He ignores the signals from Kiana and refuses to leave the table when he has a chance. He even ignored Jill, who directly intervened by pretending to be his wife. Mickey is furious because he wasn't counting cards, but rather gambling. He tells Ben to repay him no matter what. Ben doesn't want to give away the money he had earned over the past few months and taunts Mickey, who does nothing and gets 50% of the winnings while making the others go through the risk. After Mickey exits, Ben tries to convince everyone to leave Mickey and join him. Jill isn't fully on board with the plan and asks Ben how much money has he saved. Ben tells her that it's well over $300,000, but he doesn't want to stop, and manages to get her back on the team. After convincing Kiana and Choi, they head out for another round of the game. Meanwhile, Mickey spies on them and calls Cole. Cole arrives with his team and catches Ben red-handed, while Kiana and Choi flee. Jill reluctantly leaves the scene as well. Shortly after, Ben is beaten to a pulp by Cole, who tells him that many years ago, Mickey was in the same situation as Ben is, but continued to gamble anyway despite multiple beatings from Cole, and one day while Cole had to leave Vegas for his father's funeral, Mickey took advantage of his absence and won an extremely large amount of money, which led to Cole losing his job. Mickey was never to be seen playing again. That's how they both knew each other. Ben is let go after the beating and goes back to his dorm room where he learns that he can't graduate because Professor O'Reilly, aka Mickey, has failed him. He enters his room to see everything is displaced and his stash of money is gone. Ben tries to confront Mickey indirectly in his class, but the professor shuts him up. Later on, he goes to meet Jill and apologizes for his behavior. He tells her how he lost everything and wants to get his life back on track. Even his friends win the robotics competition. He confesses everything to his best friend, Miles. Miles forgives Ben and understands why he did what he did. In his helpless condition, Ben goes to see Mickey and says he wants to get back in the game with him, and that as soon as AI technology further advances, they won't be able to count cards anymore, so the window of opportunity is short. He convinces Mickey to join him at the table and win big once and for all. With Fisher gone, the team is in need of a skilled player for a high-stakes game. The professor finally agrees to join him so he can get the sabbatical from his job that he always desired. The group is back in the game once again and meet up in their usual room. Ben and Mickey are going to wear heavy disguises because the casino has seen their faces. However, they are safe because Cole would never expect them to return to Vegas. The group re-enters the casino almost unrecognizable. Ben and Mickey are on fire as chips rain down on them. A little montage shows how they earned a ton of money, but their winning streak immediately turns into a nightmare when Cole arrives with his team. Mickey and Ben collect their chips in a hurry and try to escape with Jill, while Cole sends his team after them. They eventually get cornered by security at the casino. This is when Mickey tells Ben and Jill to give him the chips and split up and meet at the strip club. Ben hesitantly gives away all the chips and runs away with Jill. They successfully escape from the security guards. Mickey also escapes in his car, but instead of the strip club, he decides to go to the airport. When he looks into the bag, his smile slowly fades away with surprise because the bag turns out to be full of chocolate coins. The scene cuts as we see a flashback when Cole was beating up Ben. Cole says he wants to catch Mickey and that Ben is going to help him. A little montage shows us how Ben and Jill exchange the bag with real chips for a decoy bag with chocolate coins while escaping the security guards. It is later shown that Mickey is in the car with the casino authorities. Ben and Jill in a parking area meet Cole, who says Ben will have no problem graduating through MIT. But Cole also proceeds to say that AI will take away his job and that he doesn't have any other way to make a living. He forces Ben to hand over their bag full of chips. Ben pleads that he needs this bag, but Cole, showing his gun, gets what he wants. Ben and Jill look over at the tables while walking out of the casino when a surprising twist reveals that Ben didn't come alone. His friends also came along and joined the other members to win some money because Ben knew that things could go south. They all leave with hands full of chips. Mickey, tied to a chair, questions his decisions as Cole mentions about his friends at the IRS. In the end, Cole finally retires. Ben and Jill get together as a couple and confess everything to his mom. Ben's narration to the member of the scholarship committee explains how he earned hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a small span of time and that he lost his earnings twice. He asks the professor sitting across the table, how was that for a life experience? And if he finally dazzled him. The professor was left with something more on his face than dazzle. The end. Thanks for watching and do subscribe to our channel.